now it gives me great pleasure to introduce the president of Friendship Heights Neighbors Network, Evan Smith.
Thank you, Louise. I'd like to welcome the members and volunteers from FHNN, Little Falls, and other villages, as well as those who are not yet part of the village. For those unfamiliar with the village movement, we're neighbors helping neighbors to age in place and lead fulfilling lives. And I'd like to give thanks to Louise for organizing today's program. Now, let me introduce our speaker, Kathleen McGuinness, an FHNN board member, a commissioner on the County Commission on Aging, and a volunteer under its ambassador program. Kathleen has received the prestigious Deb Levy 2024 Grows Humanitarian of the Year Award. She is a senior care specialist dedicated to helping individuals and families navigate the complexities of aging in place. Today, she'll be speaking to us about hiring the right caregiver. So please welcome Kathleen McGuinness.
Thank you, Evan. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for all coming on board today. I also want to give a shout out to my former neighbor, Linda R. Hey, Linda from Potomac, River Falls. Long time no see. Okay, I am going to share my screen here with you all. And today we're going to talk to you about the ins and outs of hiring a caregiver for a family member, presumably. Let's see, okay, there. Hold on. Go from the beginning, slideshow. Okay, Louise, have I got the right screen up there?
Yes, you do.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, again, thanks for coming to our Friendship Heights Neighbors Network Village presentation today. I created this presentation for JCA last month. They have quite a few caregiver support groups specifically for Alzheimer's and early Alzheimer's, which is becoming a pretty big trend. People in their 50s are getting Alzheimer's. And so anyways, so this presentation today will hopefully be helpful for you. This is Daddy. Daddy was the first person that I hired a private duty caregiver for. My father lived in Vienna, Virginia, McLean, Virginia. I lived in Potomac at the time. And my mother lived in Friendship Heights, Chevy Chase. And I also ended up hiring caregivers for my husband. So part of this is my personal journey through agency caregivers, private duty caregivers, companions, and it's updated now for the marketplace. I also hired hundreds of caregivers in my role as executive director for Charles E. Smith Life Communities, which I retired from. So there. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is understanding the requirements that you have and identifying the level of care that you need. So, you know, you can certainly ask questions, but you might want to have a pencil and paper. I'm okay if Louise will be sharing this presentation on our village website, I believe. So do you need companion, personal care, or medical assistance type of care? If companion care generally means no touching, no bathing, no helping brush teeth, that is a companion care that is often what many people start with. If you're hypothetically feel like perhaps your husband has Parkinson's and he's just kind of unsafe to leave home alone in the house while you happen to be out at your own appointments, you might want to consider a companion at that stage. Personal care would be a little more advanced, and medical assistance would be like my father, who had a Hoyer lift and was bedridden and could only be gotten into his wheelchair through a Hoyer lift. So as an employer, regardless of whom you hire, you want to make a list of specific tasks that you need. Everybody's list is slightly different. Do you need bathing? Do you need cooking? Do you need medical reminders? How many hours and how many days a week do you think you might need? If your family member or whomever you're a caregiver for needs, do they have a special diagnosis? Do they have a catheter? All these things, the person that you're engaging will need to know. Where I say, is this a one person or a two person lift? If this person is over 200 pounds, 6'4", that's generally considered a two-person lift, which means you have to hire two caregivers, or you are one of the caregivers for a transfer from bed to a wheelchair or to the toilet. So it's important that you consider the caregiver's qualifications, the caregiver's language skills, whether they're a driver, whether they're not a driver, whether they're a medical tech, which is also another category for agency caregivers. So agency caregivers technically are not allowed to dispense medications. They can hand the family member a pill box and say, you need to take these pills, but they're technically not allowed to touch it. What goes on in people's homes is a whole different story, but that's the legal explanation. And many agencies have a certified nursing assistant and med tech in the same person. But if they're a med tech, meaning they're going to put your loved one's pill in applesauce and hide it because they won't take it, that's a med tech. Next step is to sort of think about your financial considerations. Calculate how much you can afford. And I just gave kind of a baseline here. 4 hours at times 3 days a week equals $140 a day. Times 3 days is $420. Times 4 weeks in a month. So you're looking at a budget of about $1,680 a month out of pocket, generally. If you have long-term care insurance, that's always a great option. Generally, a 60 or 90-day deductible would be part of that process. ARC Respite Care in Montgomery County is a great program that will give you a family member over 60 years old caring for a loved one in the same household, meaning your driver's license match. I have somebody who lives in my building here at the Carlton in Friendship Heights, and she lives across the hall, which unfortunately does not work for the ARC Respite program. That gives you free caregiver hours through an approved agency in ARC Respite Consortium. And usually in this area, I recommend Griswold Home Care, who is an ARC Respite provider, also Smith Life Home Care. So that's, I'm going to talk to you more about this free grant program, or you could certainly put a question if you have about it, the program. So here's a comparison: private duty caregiver versus an agency caregiver. Private duty, you're responsible for taxes and payroll, interviewing, the legal compliance, In a perfect world, you would be verifying their certifications, that they are actually a certified nursing assistant with a license registered with not Montgomery County, State of Maryland Board. Private duty, you also need to think about what happens when she calls out sick when her child or whomever is ill. And what are you going to do about vacation time when she has to take vacation? You also want to have a job description and plan for some training time. I think a job description is really important for a private duty caregiver. Maybe I'm just more detailed than most people, but I think it leads to a lot of confusion and a lot of unmet expectations for the caregiver and the employer. My brother has a private duty caregiver in his house, and it seems like they're always squabbling about expectations and money. She's worked for him for over a year, and if it's not in a formal agreement of some sort or just a Word document, I do hope you out there, the audience, will consider at least having an email exchange back and forth if there's a change in expectations, a change in job description. And I really think it's important to get it in writing. That's my personal experience with hundreds of families that I've worked with literally in Montgomery County. The private duty caregiver, generally you will find they are less expensive than an agency caregiver. Right now, it seems to be trending at around $19 to $35 an hour for a private duty caregiver. With an agency, you have more choices. First, you need to choose an agency. There's over 400 agencies in this metropolitan area. Your agencies should be licensed. They should hopefully have something from the Better Business Bureau accrediting them. You should be able to have 24/7 access to the agency's office or the staff member assigned to your case. If it were me, and it has been me hiring online, I look at their Yelp reviews. I also look at their Google reviews. That is not the be all to end all. I know that as an agency director for years, Yelp has a bad habit of hiding or just saying, they'll say on there, there are 9 reviews that are not shown. And that's basically because the person that is the reviewer doesn't have enough reviews online Yelp to be what they term as a good reviewer, which is not true, but that is just the way it is. So from an agency, you should also expect a free, some agencies charge, RN assessment initially. If you have long-term care insurance, you will need that RN assessment to turn into your long-term care insurance company. And then every 90 days thereafter that you employ that agency, you will have a supervisory visit from the RN. And you can request to have that supervisory visit. They will update the patient's care plan. And there's no reason why you can't have a copy of it. And it's Maryland state law that they have to do a supervisory visit, make sure the caregiver is providing the right care, to make sure that this person has enough care. If they're having 4 hours of care, maybe they really need 8. So that should be a recommendation that an in-person, eyes-on visit would determine. The agency caregiver, 99% of the time, is more expensive than a private duty caregiver. Private duty caregiver is agent through an agency usually runs around $28 to $45 an hour. depending on where you are, depending on how many hours you request. There's a lot of parameters in there, and how many days of the week, how many hours, they're all indicators of what you're going to be charged. Here's another example of a private duty caregiver versus an agency caregiver. This is Tracy. Tracy is a private duty caregiver. She works for my brother in his home in Virginia, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. She lives out, and her salary is approximately $1,500 a week. And she is supposed to have taxes taken out, Social Security, et cetera, et cetera. An agency caregiver would work less hours probably at $37 an hour. Tracy's making $30 an hour. The agency caregiver is charging $37 an hour, but she probably only gets about $20, $21, depending on the agency, in her actual pocket minus taxes. So it's a different ball game. Screening. There's a lot that goes into screening, and for private duty, you can request a detailed resume. You know, care.com is another source of hiring caregivers, and many of them have some great resumes for private duty or freelancing through an agency. If you, as the employer, want to verify the certifications, you should be paying more for certified nursing assistant, or they will be charging more for a certified nursing assistant or med tech. But if their license has expired, you can find that out very easily checking the Board of Nursing. This is a link there to it for the state of Maryland. If you're going to hire them yourself, like my brother does, you do want to conduct a background check, criminal, driving record. Good Hire is one source that you might use for that. But, you know, as an agency, if we saw a caregiver with 2 DUIs on her driving record, I'm not going to hire her. This is, you know, pretty precious cargo in the car. So, again, before you interview somebody, have your key questions ready. If you don't know the questions to ask, just Google, I want to interview a private duty caregiver for my spouse. Give me some good questions to ask. These are questions, these are screening points that you would want to pay attention to. Care.com is also a great source for private duty. Other trusted sources are, if you live in a high-rise building, ask your building listserv. There's an awful lot of good caregivers that float around neighborhoods. You know, the person they're caring for passes away or they need more hours. Your building listserv is usually a pretty good source of referrals. And do make the time to call the person that you're interviewing, their references, you know, and schedule a Zoom or an in-person interview with the person that you're thinking of hiring. I know these sound like basic questions, but for a lot of people out there who've never hired someone, they're not so basic. They're things that people don't think of until you're in that position. Again, I do recommend you have a simple job description typed up of what you expect that person to do daily. If you use AI, you can put it in ChatGPT and say, give me a list of what I should expect a caregiver to do. Boom, they'll pump out a whole job description Google, Copilot, any of those will also do one. Again, this is the screening section. So if you're hiring an agency online, the first decision you have to make is what agency to hire. I do recommend you interview at least 2, so you have a basis of comparison. I usually interviewed 3. Again, it's a time suck, but it's a pretty important decision. This is someone who's coming into your home. You want to make sure that it's a safe person to have in your house and that this is a trusted provider. You can also confirm the agency licensing and accreditation. Ask, what does that caregiver do for training? Almost 100% of the agencies I know that are larger agencies or family-owned agencies, they always hire somebody who has at least 2 years experience, generally from a facility. So that person has performed all types of tasks, from changing pans to showering, the whole gamut. If they've worked in a facility, they're put in a whole, at least 6 or 7 different roles. And then they also verify the caregiver's credentials. If they don't have a certified nursing assistant, I wouldn't choose that agency myself. So the training, with that training that they receive from Maryland state accreditation that gives out the CNA certification or the MedTech certification, that caregiving agency that you hire from should also do at least 8 hours of in-house training. That's hands-on dementia education by their certified dementia practitioners on staff. Kosher training, if that agency provides kosher trained caregivers. I worked on a Jewish campus for many years, and kosher, being able to keep kosher, was very important to a lot of our clients. So again, for an agency, background check, insurance. If a caregiver with an agency is driving your car, then they don't charge you mileage. If you are riding in the caregiver's car to a medical appointment or whatever, then they will generally charge you an additional fee of, I think it's the IRS mileage, I think is 68 cents per mile. The agency's insurance covers their driver and whatever car they happen to be driving. So you would not file a claim on your insurance, you would file a claim on the agency's insurance. Again, an agency caregiver, what's their approach to emergencies? Do they have a 24/7 phone number? Is there a nurse available to speak with you 24/7? Generally, they should have that available for you. Ask them, why should you choose them? In addition to considering personal referrals and neighbor suggestions, every agency has their niche market. Maybe their specialty is Parkinson's clients, or maybe they have a lot of certified dementia practitioners. So they've really done a good job of training their caregivers to be thoughtful with dementia patients, because it can be a trying experience. The other thing is to review the agency contract very carefully. How much notice do you need to fire them? They may say 2 weeks in their agreement, which is too long. 72 hours is generally plenty of time, unless you're providing or you're hiring 24/7. That may, they may want a week, but every agreement that you look at and that you're signing with an agency is negotiable. So just bring up whatever it is that you want to bring up with that agency and ask them to cross it out. Understand that you're going to pay for holidays, you're going to pay time and a half. They're not necessarily going to call you and remind you that you just signed an agreement right after Memorial Day, for instance, or right before Memorial Day. You're going to pay time and a half for Memorial Day. Can you cancel services on Memorial Day if your family's all going to be together? Yes, absolutely. Try to give them 48 hours notice to cancel service in writing. Don't just leave a voicemail. Technically, you should be able to do that, but it can become a matter of contention at a later date. Have a written record of it. Okay. This is another option that is fairly new. The last couple of months, not months, last couple of years is Neighbor Force. This is kind of the in-between. This is companion care. They're not personal care. This is a membership-based care providing organization. You have to join and be a member. It's $35 a month. But if you hire them for 1 hour for a month, that $35 can go towards the care fee. So basically it ensures that you're using their services. What do? They do meal prep, help with technology, iPads, smartphones, organizing, walk your pet. It's an extra set of hands in your home that probably lives near you. Neighbor Force is usually an older adult, 50s, 60s, somebody who may be retired, who likes to interact, who likes to work in their neighborhood, and they're hired by Neighbor Force. So you have kind of the benefit of an agency, but without the minimum requirements. It's only 1 hour minimum with Neighbor Force, which is pretty unusual. If you get it from another company, it'll be very expensive. Another agency I know, will do it, but it's $75 an hour. So, oy. They are insured, they're bonded, they're fully vetted. They're not professional certified nursing assistants. There's no touching usually. However, again, in the privacy of people's homes, I don't know what goes on, but they might stand outside to shower while you take a shower if you just got out of rehab and you're wobbly. That's between you and your Neighbor Force person. So there are no contracts, there are no agreements with Neighbor Force. Most of the time it's on your iPhone. If you can't work an iPhone, then you can tell them what you need or want on the phone. And it's $38 an hour. They're for 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and $43 an hour after 6 p.m. or before 8 a.m. Then the other part, if they stay over, they bill you in 5-hour increments, which is, yikes, that can be a lot. So that can get expensive. So you just need to watch that. Legal and financial considerations. Private duty versus agency. You have to set up the written contract, duties, pay, expectations with private duty. You need to have liability insurance and workman's comp coverage. You need to understand the tax responsibilities and have them as a W-2 or as a 1099 category. And then you, the employer, need to arrange for backup care for 6 days or emergencies. You basically don't have to do any of that with an agency, except I always recommend having a document in your home with your expectations of that caregiver. So additionally, with an agency, you should expect to receive a registered nurse's care plan that this agency will execute daily with the duties that you expect that caregiver to provide. And that caregiver, she checks in, she's paid, she clocks in on her phone and out of her phone. And there's generally a GPS fence, if you will, set up around your home so the caregiver can't clock out at Krispy Kreme donuts on her way to work. So you want to have those, the address, the check-in, check-out, and the care plan, and she completes these tasks: meal prep, change the bed, shower, whatever it is that her assignments are that day. There's a task log that's completed with an agency caregiver. And if you have long-term care insurance, this agency task log will be provided to the long-term care insurance agency. Again, set clear expectations and schedules. And even though it's an agency and a trained person, you want to help them be successful. Walk them through what their job is. Have something on the refrigerator. The agency I worked for, I had a meal list for the week so that I would know that, Daddy loved hot dogs with macaroni and cheese. I know it's not healthy, but at 89, I give Daddy whatever he wanted. Plenty of ice cream in the freezer, a deck of cards. If he could play gin rummy with the caregiver and take her money or her nickels, he was really happy. And my job was to keep him happy. Okay, so hiring a caregiver can really improve the quality of life for everyone involved. So these slides that you saw beforehand are the minutia, the nitty-gritty, if you're going to be a new employer for the first time, or things that you should be aware of if you're going to engage an agency. You still need to be educated and pay attention so that you get the best options for your money. So I'm also a commissioner on the Commission on Aging. So there's a lot of really excellent Montgomery County care services if you're home alone, particularly for residents 65 and older. You can sign up for the senior call check. Here's the phone number for you to register. There's the link, and then they will call a landline or a cell phone. Betty, my neighbor over in Chevy Chase, who's in a home and is not leaving that home no matter what. Betty's 95. She has lots of stairs. And, last year she fell in the pool. Thank God she got herself out of it. But, so I have this senior call check for Betty. Anybody, it's a robocall. But if they don't get you, after 2 robocalls, 2 consecutive days, they'll contact the person that you list as like me for Betty or a neighbor, and they'll do a check on them. So I'm going to show you some other slides here, and I also have information that we can email you. Again, Montgomery County has their aging and disability, their Commission on Aging. There's lots of resources that they can help you with. You can just call. Let's see. Before I say phone numbers, I spoke about respite care for Montgomery County a little bit earlier, and this is a little more detail on Montgomery County ARC respite care. So that means that you, the healthy spouse or partner, daughter, son, brother, sister, anybody. You don't have to be related either. You can just be two individuals living in the same house as roommates, keeping an eye out for each other. You do need to be 60 plus years of age, and you can apply for this grant that is paid for with all of our tax dollars, and it's free. I mean, it's a gift of living in Montgomery County, and our taxes are not inexpensive. So I highly recommend you check it out. As a commissioner on the Commission on Aging, we were able to get them more money. It helps build a bridge to care, especially for the first time. You know, just 4 hours, it's 40 hours a month, no more than 40 hours a month, and a maximum of 120 hours. So hypothetically, you could have, you know, 2 4-hour mornings a week out of the house, go do whatever, get your nails done, do something fun to help rejuvenate yourself, because caregiving is a large emotional, psychological job. You can start applying for this ARC respite grant, which will coming out. It's finished for 2025. Fiscal year 2026, which begins July 1. They'll be taking applications somewhere around July 5th or 6th, probably this year. You can go online, get an application, get your ducks in order, and boom, have it in there by, you know, July 7th. You have questions about that, happy to answer it. Just want to let you know that Montgomery County has many 24/7 lines for crisis support, suicide intervention, 988, aging and disability. This 3000 number answers probably 50% of the calls that come in looking for non-emergency support or Montgomery County programs, daycare programs. Jessa has some amazing programs for, quote, dementia light. That basically means the person is continent and is mobile. And they have some really great socialization programs. Jessa has them for a small fee, but there's also grants for them. Montgomery County has some. The crisis center, if you have someone, a loved one who has mental health issues, 240-777-4000 is the number to call. The crisis outreach team will come to the home if 24/7, if somebody's having a mental health experience, breakdown. Commission on Aging, I have some resources for that. Louise tells me she's been sharing the flyer for our caregiving forum, which is put on by Montgomery County, May 21st at Borough Park. Wait a minute, I'm going to share some of those slides right now. Wait a minute, let's get out of here. Oops, I closed that out. This one, this is open to anybody. Everybody here in the audience is eligible to go to this to learn information about caregiving, or give feedback to Montgomery County about what's missing in their caregiver programs. All of the grand poobahs of Montgomery County, council members, the directors, they will be at this event, and it is free. It's at Borough Park, and lunch is provided if you choose to attend it. Also, these are some upcoming talks. Oops, navigating dementia. They're all free. They're all put on by professionals. It's a Zoom registration. Louise, can we email this if people want it? How do you want us to do that?
Yeah, if you send it to me along with the PowerPoint.
Okay.
So people request it. And Is the May 21, do they have a Zoom option or is it just in
They
person?
they do actually, I believe, have a Zoom option. It should be on the flyer.
Okay, the flyer was a little bit small.
Yeah, I have a lengthy flyer. This is another one on caregiving, family caregivers. We spend an awful lot of time in Montgomery County, the Commission on Aging, Aging and Disability, Friendship Heights Neighbors Network, trying to do outreach and provide resources for people who are trying to provide care for a loved one. I know when I was trying to find and provide care for my husband, there were times I thought I was just going to go right off my balcony. It was just exhausting, not being able to sleep and all the other things that come with it. But there's a lot of great transportation options, financial assistance. We live in a resource-rich area for people that need support, far better than it was 10 years ago for me. So thank you everybody for your attention. I hope that's helpful. Those are my extras. Let's see, how about if I get rid of that and then blow this out? There we go. Okay, so
If you stop the slide sharing, we can see everybody.
oh, okay, that would be a good idea. Share, stop. Did I stop? No.
No, we still see your screen, Kathleen.
Oh, I don't. Okay, there we
There
go.
we go. There we go.
Okay.
And I think we can stop the recording now.